My name is Sarah Martinez. I'm 27 years old, and I never thought my job would save my father's life at his own wedding. The look on his face when the news anchor said my name on live television is something I'll never forget. If you're watching this video right now, I'd love to know where you're from. Drop your location in the comments below, hit that like button, and subscribe to hear more stories about family relationships that take unexpected turns. For years, my father introduced me the same way to his colleagues and friends. "This is Sarah. She's just a security guard." Those 4 words haunted every family gathering, every social event, every conversation about my future. He would say it with this slight grimace, like he was apologizing for my existence. My father, Dr. Michael Martinez, built his reputation as one of the top heart surgeons in the city. In his world, success meant medical degrees, hospital positions, and country club memberships. Our family photos lined his office walls, but somehow I always felt like the one person who didn't belong in the frame. But everything changed that Saturday afternoon when armed robbers stormed his wedding reception. What happened next not only saved lives but completely transformed our relationship forever. You see, what my father didn't understand was that being just a security guard had actually prepared me for the most important moment of both our lives. The skills he dismissed as unworthy became the very thing that protected everyone he cared about most. This is the story of how one terrifying day proved that sometimes the career your family looks down on becomes the skill that saves their lives. And how my father finally learned that respect isn't about job titles, it's about character. Growing up in the Martinez family meant living with extremely high expectations. My father came from a long line of doctors, and he expected his children to continue that legacy. Our house was filled with medical journals, hospital awards, and conversations about surgical procedures over dinner. My older brother Alex followed the expected path perfectly. He graduated top of his class, went to medical school, and became a cardiologist. Dad would beam with pride introducing Alex at medical conferences. "This is my son, Dr. Alexander Martinez. He's doing groundbreaking work in cardiac surgery." Then there was me. My mother, Maria Martinez, was a nurse who understood that not everyone was meant for medicine. She died in a car accident 3 years ago, and with her went the only person in our family who truly supported my choices. Mom always said, "Sarah has a gift for protecting people. That matters just as much as healing them." After high school, I started in a criminal justice program, but switched to security studies when I realized my passion was in prevention rather than prosecution. I loved the strategic thinking, the attention to detail, and the responsibility of keeping people safe. I landed a job at Pinnacle Corporate Plaza, a high-end business complex downtown. This wasn't mall security or checking IDs at a nightclub. I managed sophisticated surveillance systems, coordinated with law enforcement, and provided protection for VIP clients during high-stakes business meetings. The pay was actually excellent, and I was respected by my colleagues and supervisors. But my family saw only the uniform. At Christmas dinner last year, Dad introduced me to his colleague this way: "Sarah's still doing her security thing while she figures out what she really wants to do with her life." I had just been promoted to head of security, managing a team of 12 people, but he didn't know because he never asked about my work. During a medical conference where I happened to help during a cardiac emergency in the parking lot, using my CPR training and crowd control skills until paramedics arrived, Dad never acknowledged my competence. Instead, he told people, "Lucky Sarah was here. She knows basic first aid from her job." The dating struggles were the worst part. Dad would tell potential partners' parents that I was between careers or still exploring options. One guy's father asked what I did for work, and Dad jumped in with, "She's taking time to figure things out. Very responsible girl, just hasn't found her calling yet." I had found my calling. I loved analyzing security risks, training new team members, and knowing that my work kept hundreds of people safe every day. My best friend Maria would remind me constantly, "You're amazing at what you do." Don't let his narrow definition of success make you doubt yourself. But it was hard. When the person who's supposed to believe in you most treats your career like a temporary phase or a disappointing detour, it chips away at your confidence. I started wondering if maybe he was right. Maybe I should go back to school, become a nurse or a physician assistant, something that would finally make him proud. The irony was that I had recently received a major promotion to head of security for the entire Pinnacle complex. My salary was competitive with many entry-level medical positions, and I managed security protocols for some of the city's most important business dealings. But Dad didn't know any of this, because our conversations never went deeper than, "How's the security job going?" followed by his quick change of subject to Alex's latest medical achievement. That dynamic was about to change forever, though I had no idea how dramatically when I received the elegant wedding invitation in my mailbox. The wedding invitation arrived on cream-colored paper with gold embossing. Dr. Michael Martinez and Dr. Patricia Chun request the honor of your presence. Patricia was a fellow surgeon Dad had met at a medical symposium. Their engagement announcement had appeared in the city's society pages, complete with photos of them at various charity galas. I almost didn't go. "You have to attend," my friend Maria insisted when I showed her the invitation over coffee. "It's your father's wedding. Maybe this time will be different." "Different how?" I stirred my latte, avoiding her eyes. "He'll introduce me as his daughter, who's still figuring out her life direction while doing security work." "Then prove him wrong," Maria said firmly. "Show up looking amazing, be confident about who you are, and don't let him make you feel small." Shopping for wedding attire became an all-day event with Maria. We finally settled on a navy blue dress that was elegant without being flashy, paired with simple silver jewelry. Looking in the mirror, I felt a flutter of hope. Maybe this time Dad would see me as the accomplished professional I had become. The night before the wedding, I called my Aunt Rosa, Mom's sister, for moral support. "Your mother would be so proud of you," she said softly. "Remember, honey, his inability to see your value is his problem, not yours. You've built a career that matters." The wedding venue was Grand Willow Estate, a sprawling property with manicured gardens and a ballroom that screamed luxury. As my taxi approached, I could see white tents gleaming in the distance and elaborate floral arrangements that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. The guest list read like a medical directory combined with the city's social register. During cocktail hour, conversations swirled around hospital politics, medical breakthroughs, and investment portfolios. Women in designer dresses discussed their latest charity board appointments while men in tailored suits debated healthcare legislation. I felt immediately out of place despite my carefully chosen outfit. "Sarah?" Dad's voice carried across the reception area. He approached with Patricia on his arm, both looking like they'd stepped out of a luxury lifestyle magazine. "You made it. You look lovely." His greeting was warm but distant. A quick cheek kiss that barely made contact. Patricia offered a practiced smile. "So wonderful to finally meet you properly. Michael speaks of you often." Before I could respond, one of Patricia's relatives approached. "You must be Sarah. What do you do for work?" My father jumped in immediately. "Sarah does security work. She's still exploring her options. Very responsible girl." That familiar apologetic tone, as if my career needed explanation or excuse. "How interesting," the woman replied, clearly struggling to find something positive to say about security work. This scene would repeat itself throughout the cocktail hour. Each introduction followed the same pattern. Each time, I felt smaller, more invisible, more like the family disappointment Dad seemed to see me as. What I couldn't have known was how dramatically this wedding day would change everything between us. The ceremony was beautiful. Dad and Patricia exchanged vows under an arch of white roses while string quartet music drifted across the garden. I sat in the back row, trying to feel happy for them while nursing the familiar ache of being the family outsider. During the transition to the reception, I considered leaving early. I'd fulfilled my duty by attending, given my congratulations, and endured enough awkward introductions for one day. But something made me stay. Maybe it was stubborn pride, or the tiny hope that the evening might somehow be different. That's when my professional training kicked in. Working in corporate security for 5 years had taught me to notice things that don't fit patterns. During cocktail hour, while other guests mingled and chatted, my eyes automatically scanned the room, cataloging exits, noting staff positions, assessing crowd flow. One of the catering staff caught my attention. Not because of anything dramatic, but because of subtle inconsistencies. His uniform didn't quite match the others, slightly different shade of white, wrong style of buttons. More importantly, his behavior was off. While other servers focused on their trays and guests, his eyes constantly scanned the crowd in a way I recognized from my training. He wasn't serving.
He was assessing.
I watched as he spoke briefly with two other staff members near the bar setup. Both displayed the same alertness that seemed wrong for catering personnel. They moved with purpose, but not the purpose of people trying to serve drinks and appetizers. At first, I tried to dismiss my concerns. Professional hazard, I told myself. You see threats everywhere. But the nagging feeling persisted as I observed their positioning around the room. They were creating a perimeter, not a service pattern. During dinner, I excused myself to use the restroom and took a route that allowed me to observe the kitchen area. The suspicious staff members had congregated near a service entrance, speaking in hushed tones. I couldn't hear their conversation, but their body language screamed coordination and planning. One checked his watch. Another nodded toward the main reception area, where wedding guests were finishing the main course. The third pulled out what looked like a small radio or communication device. My blood ran cold. This wasn't paranoia. This was reconnaissance. I retreated to a quiet alcove and called 911, keeping my voice low as I identified myself as a security professional and outlined my concerns. The dispatcher took me seriously, but explained it would take at least 15 minutes for officers to arrive at the remote venue location. Next, I found the venue's security office, a small room near the administrative offices. Inside, I discovered a single security guard monitoring basic camera feeds. "I need to speak with your supervisor immediately," I said, showing my Pinnacle Corporate Plaza security credentials. "There's a credible security threat to the Martinez-Chun wedding reception." The guard, an older man named Frank, looked skeptical but called his manager. Within minutes, I was explaining my observations to the venue's head of security, James Parker. "I can't disrupt a high-profile wedding based on suspicious behavior," he said after listening to my assessment. "But I'll alert my team to be more vigilant." "These aren't random troublemakers," I insisted. "This looks like a coordinated operation. I count at least 4 individuals positioned strategically around the reception area. They're communicating via devices, and they're waiting for something." Parker's expression grew more serious. "What kind of timeline are we looking at?" "Based on their positioning and the event schedule, I guess they're planning to move during the speeches and father-daughter dance," I analyzed. Maximum distraction. All attention focused on the emotional moments. That's when wealthy guests are most vulnerable and least aware of their surroundings. Parker nodded, finally understanding the gravity of the situation. "Police are 15 minutes out. At least. And if I'm right about the timing, they're planning to act within the next 10 minutes. Through the office window, I could see the reception area. The DJ was making announcements about upcoming speeches. Guests were settling back into their seats with fresh drinks, jewelry glinting under the chandeliers. Patricia's grandmother, wearing what appeared to be family heirloom diamonds, sat at the head table, completely unaware of potential danger. My father stood near the dance floor, champagne glass in hand, preparing to give his speech as the new husband. He looked happy, relaxed, surrounded by everything he valued most: professional success, social status, and the approval of his peers. In that moment, despite years of dismissal and disappointment, I knew I couldn't let anything happen to him or these innocent people. Whatever our relationship problems, no one deserved to have their celebration turn into a nightmare. "I'm going back out there," I told Parker. "Keep your team ready, and call me the second the police arrive." As I walked back toward the reception, my phone buzzed with a text from the 911 dispatcher. "Unit still 12 minutes out. Maintain observation, but do not engage unless an imminent threat to life." Looking across the elegant reception, watching the fake catering staff move into final positions, I realized that the imminent threat was about to become very real. The speech portion of the reception began perfectly. Dad stood at the microphone, thanking guests for celebrating this special day. Patricia beamed beside him, her grandmother's diamond necklace catching the light as she applauded. I positioned myself near the back of the reception area, maintaining visual contact with the four suspicious individuals I'd identified. They had spread out strategically, one near the gift table, one by the main exit, one by the bar, and the apparent leader positioned closest to the head table. Dad was midway through his speech when I noticed the leader check his watch and touch his earpiece. The subtle signal rippled through his team. This was it. The lights suddenly dimmed, not as part of the wedding ambience, but as a tactical move to create confusion. In that moment of darkness, I heard the distinctive sound of weapons being drawn. "Nobody move," a voice shouted as the lights came back up. "This is a robbery. Cooperate and nobody gets hurt." The reception hall erupted in screams and chaos. Guests dove under tables, knocked over chairs, and scrambled for exits that were now blocked by armed men. Wine glasses shattered as people sought cover. Patricia's elderly grandmother clutched her chest, looking like she might have a heart attack. My father stood frozen at the microphone, his champagne glass slipping from his fingers to crash on the floor. Years of security training took over. While everyone else panicked, I assessed the tactical situation with cold clarity. 4 armed suspects, approximately 60 guests in immediate danger, limited cover, and police still 10 minutes away. The leader approached the head table, weapon trained on my father. Jewelry, watches, wallets.
Now.
Dad's hands shook as he removed his Rolex. Patricia fumbled with her grandmother's necklace, tears streaming down her face. The elderly woman beside them was hyperventilating, clearly in medical distress. I couldn't watch my family being terrorized any longer. Moving carefully to stay out of the gunman's sightlines, I worked my way toward the elderly woman who was struggling to breathe. Her husband held her hand, whispering frantically, "Please, she has a heart condition. She needs her medication." The nearest gunman turned his weapon toward them. "Shut her up or I will." That's when I made my choice. Rising from behind an overturned table, I addressed the gunman calmly. "I'm a medic. Let me help her before she has a cardiac event. You don't want a death on your hands. That's the difference between robbery and murder charges." The gunman hesitated, clearly not expecting professional advice from a wedding guest. "Make it quick." I knelt beside the elderly woman, positioning myself strategically while pretending to check her pulse. "Deep breaths," I instructed quietly. "I'm going to help you and everyone else here. Just focus on breathing." While appearing to provide medical assistance, I was assessing the positions and weapons of all 4 suspects. The leader had a semi-automatic pistol and seemed military-trained. The others appeared less professional, probably hired muscle. From my kneeling position, I could see venue security guard Frank creeping along the far wall. I caught his eye and gave a subtle hand signal, 2 fingers toward the bar gunman, then 3 toward the exit. He understood and began positioning for coordinated action. The leader was now demanding access to the venue safe where wedding gifts and valuable items were stored. "The combination, now, or people start getting hurt." Dad's voice cracked as he replied, "I don't know it. The venue manager has it." The leader pressed his gun against Patricia's temple. "Find someone who does." My father's face went white with terror. In that moment, seeing him so vulnerable and afraid, years of family disappointment melted away. Whatever our relationship problems, I couldn't watch him die. I caught Frank's eye again and nodded. Time to move. In one fluid motion, I rose and grabbed a heavy champagne bottle from the nearby table. "I work for the venue," I called out, drawing the leader's attention away from Patricia. "I can get you the combination." As the leader turned toward me, weapon swinging in my direction, I executed a move I'd practiced countless times in security training. I threw the champagne bottle as a distraction while simultaneously diving toward him, using the chaos to close the distance. The bottle struck his shoulder, causing him to stumble backward. In that split second, I tackled him, using my momentum and his surprise to knock the gun from his hand. We crashed into a table, sending flowers and dishes flying. "Gun down! Gun down!" I shouted as Frank and another security guard engaged the other suspects. The leader was bigger than me, but I had training and adrenaline on my side. Using defensive techniques learned in security courses, I managed to pin his weapon arm while calling out the positions of the remaining gunmen to Frank and the other guards. 2 more by the exits. 1 behind the bar. Gunshots erupted as the other suspects realized their leader was down. I felt a searing pain in my shoulder, but I maintained my hold on the primary weapon, kicking it away from the struggling leader. Through the chaos, I heard the beautiful sound of police sirens finally approaching. The cavalry was coming, but the fight wasn't over. One of the remaining gunmen grabbed Patricia's grandmother as a human shield, pressing his gun to her head. Everyone back off or the old lady dies. Frank and the other security guards froze, unable to act without risking her life. But I had a clear angle from my position on the floor. Drawing on every hour of tactical training I'd ever received, I calculated distance, trajectory, and timing. The gunman was focused on the security guards, not on the bleeding woman he thought was neutralized. I launched myself forward, striking his weapon arm with precision while simultaneously pulling the elderly woman to safety. The gun fired into the ceiling as we all went down together. By the time police stormed the reception hall, all 4 suspects were subdued, and I was applying pressure to my shoulder wound with a cloth napkin while the elderly woman squeezed my uninjured hand. "You saved my life," she whispered. "Who are you?" Before I could answer, I heard my father's voice, filled with awe and something I'd never heard before: genuine pride. "That's my daughter. She's head of security at Pinnacle Corporate Plaza." The next few hours passed in a blur of paramedics, police statements, and media crews arriving at the scene. My shoulder wound required 15 stitches, but no surgery. The bullet had grazed muscle without hitting bone or major arteries. As I sat in the ambulance getting patched up, I could hear guests giving statements to police, many of them describing my actions in increasingly heroic terms. "She moved like something from an action movie," one guest told a reporter. "She saved that elderly woman and then took down the leader while he was threatening the father of the bride." Without her quick thinking, this could have been a massacre, another added. My father approached the ambulance as the paramedic finished bandaging my shoulder. His face was pale, and his hands still shook slightly from the adrenaline. "Samantha," he said, using my formal name for the first time in years instead of his usual casual Sarah. "The police said you identified the threat before it happened. You probably saved everyone's lives, including mine and Patricia's." I didn't know how to respond. Years of dismissal couldn't be erased by one crisis, no matter how dramatic. "I just did my job, Dad," I said quietly. "Even if it's just being a security guard." His face flushed as my words hit home, his phrase thrown back at him. "The police captain called you a security expert. He said what you did was textbook threat assessment and tactical response." Before I could reply, a local news crew approached. The reporter, recognizing me as the primary hero of the story, asked for an on-camera interview. "I'm not interested in publicity," I told her. "I'm just glad everyone is safe." But the story was already spreading. By the next morning, my phone was buzzing with notifications. The incident had made regional news, with headlines like "Security Expert Foils Wedding Robbery" and "Quick Thinking Professional Saves Wedding Reception." The news coverage was detailed and factual. They interviewed the police captain, who praised my professional response. They showed my credentials from Pinnacle Corporate Plaza and mentioned my recent promotion to head of security. For the first time, the media was presenting the full picture of who I was professionally. Dad watched the morning news in his hotel room, seeing reports that described me as a highly trained security professional and an expert in threat assessment and tactical response. The same daughter he'd been calling just a security guard was being praised by law enforcement officials and security industry experts. When he called me later that morning, his voice was different, subdued, thoughtful. "I saw the news coverage," he said. "I had no idea about your promotion or your specialized training or the level of responsibility you handle. The police chief said you probably prevented multiple casualties." "Dad, I've been trying to tell you about my work for years," I replied. "You just never wanted to listen." There was a long pause. "You're right. And I owe you an apology. Not just for yesterday, but for years of not seeing who you are. It was a start. 6 months after the wedding, my relationship with Dad had transformed completely. He started asking detailed questions about my work, listening to my answers, and even attending a security industry conference where I was speaking about crisis response. The incident brought professional recognition I never expected. Pinnacle Corporate Plaza promoted me to Regional Security Director, overseeing multiple office complexes. I received a Civilian Bravery Award from the police department, and several security firms tried to recruit me with impressive offers. More meaningful than any award, though, was the change in family dynamics. Dad now introduces me with genuine pride. This is my daughter, Sarah. She's the Regional Security Director for Pinnacle Corporate Plaza. She's an expert in threat assessment and crisis response. Patricia's grandmother sent me a handwritten thank you note every month for the first year, always ending with, "You gave me the chance to see my great-grandchildren grow up." The 4 robbery suspects were convicted and sentenced to lengthy prison terms. The lead investigator told me they were part of a larger criminal organization that had been targeting high-end events across 3 states. But the most important change was internal. I no longer needed Dad's approval to feel confident in my career choices. The validation was nice, but I had finally learned that my worth wasn't dependent on anyone else's recognition. Last month, Dad called me for advice when his hospital was updating its security protocols. "You're the expert," he said simply. "What do you recommend?" As I walked him through threat assessment procedures and emergency response planning, I realized we had come full circle. The career he'd once dismissed was now something he respected and relied on. Our relationship still isn't perfect, but it's built on mutual respect now instead of disappointed expectations. And that makes all the difference. Have you ever had someone in your family finally see your true value after years of dismissing your career choices? Or maybe you've experienced a dramatic moment that completely changed a difficult relationship in your life. I'd love to hear your story in the comments below. Drop your experience with overcoming family expectations or proving doubters wrong. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and share it with someone who might need a reminder that their career path is valid, even when others can't see its value. Your job matters if it matters to you. Subscribe to this channel for more stories about personal triumph, family relationships, and those life-changing moments when everything shifts in an instant. Ring the notification bell so you don't miss future videos. Remember, respect isn't earned through job titles or social status. It's earned through character, competence, and courage. Sometimes, the career others look down on becomes the skill that changes everything. Thank you for watching, and never forget, your path is worthy of respect, especially from the people who matter most in your life. The most important security you can have is the confidence to be exactly who you're meant to be.